what's your sense of the relationship between crypto and TradFi now in 2024? So, are we making progress? Is TradFi starting to really understand the potential here? It felt to me like the Bitcoin ETF was maybe a breakthrough moment, but like maybe like it's happened before that. Anyway, what's kind of the temperature in how well TradFi is responding to crypto at this point?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think within every single TradFi shop, there's the resident degen at this point who's trying to advocate to get things off the ground. I think the Bitcoin ETF was a really, really big deal, right? Because it's so funny. Like we made a lot of progress in explaining how Bitcoin is not a security, but then we make it a security by wrapping it in an ETF, and it's starting to scale. I'm very excited about the ETH ETF as well. But I think a light bulb is going on now. I think when BlackRock really engaged, like BlackRock moves markets. When I was at Citi, they're the biggest, most important client in the world. When they say they want something, that generally gets done, whether that's through a regulatory lens or otherwise, because they're huge and they represent a huge amount of wealth. So that's a big deal. That said, it's going to take time. The banks are going to be constrained by their ability to embrace crypto because of these things called the Basel rules. I don't want to get too technical here, but like there's capital that they have to hold against their exposures, and that capital is just too high. And so it's very difficult for them to be profitable. So it's going to take them a long time because these capital rules are going to hold them up. But and again, we go through these crazy cycles where it's like, oh, Bitcoin, blockchain, not Bitcoin, and like public, no private. So I think like currently there's a little bit more focus on this like private DLT stuff, but everyone knows where we're going. I think Sandy articulated it brilliantly. We're going to end up in a public arena, and I think TradFi is going to come along. It's just going to take some time, and there will be naysayers because it's scary, but tokenization is important for TradFi right now because it addresses some real utility, which is quicker settlement, lowering risk. But yeah, it's just a process, and they'll come around. But it's also scary, right? Because it undermines business models. A lot of TradFi is predicated on intermediaries, and now you don't need them as much in certain places. I don't think you're going to get rid of intermediaries because some clients want that high touch. But other folks are going to say, I don't need that intermediary. I can go direct. So it'll be a process.
So, Chris, you said BlackRock being the size that it is, BlackRock gets what BlackRock wants, and BlackRock at some point wanted a Bitcoin ETF, and poof, there we go. We have a Bitcoin ETF. I've heard Larry Fink talk about tokenization as well as kind of like some excitement for BlackRock there. I imagine he sees kind of a like a budding growth opportunity. But another thing kind of on the list for BlackRock, and you tell me, might be the Ethereum ETF. We're going to talk about Ethereum a lot in kind of the next part of the conversation, but does BlackRock want an ETH ETF? Because if so, that bodes well for our chances here. Do you have any takes on this?
Yeah, so let me flash back to back in the day when, after the global financial crisis, Dodd-Frank came out, right? And Dodd-Frank was very prescriptive about what was required for the regulators to execute. It's so funny because the CFTC diverted away from that playbook once, and that was because BlackRock didn't like the level of asset protection that the law was delivering. And so they said, we need to change, guys, regulators, we want you to better safeguard our collateral. And that was the only real deviation from that playbook with the CFTC back in the day. And so, yes, I think BlackRock is focused on the ETH ETF. I think the correlations that we saw that stood up in some of the court rulings that we saw with DCG stand up. I think it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. But I think the challenge, and by the way, I think the TradFi mind really understands Ethereum, because like Bitcoin, it's like, okay, what makes Bitcoin special? All right, there's 21 million coins, that there can't be any more than that. So like it's limited supply, totally. Okay, I get it, store value. Then they go to like Ethereum and they're like, wait a second, you're telling me that there's yield on this thing and I can have smart contracts? That's pretty cool. And so I do think that ETH as an asset class is going to be super appealing as people take the time to really understand it a little bit. And so it's a matter of when, not if, and hopefully sometime this year.
If you enjoyed all of that, then you'll absolutely love the Bankless newsletter. Join over 300,000 fellow readers, all for free. Click below to sign up.